I am pleased to be talking with my longtime friend, Carl Powell. The man is, in 40 years, been teaching people how to take care of their mind, bodies, and soul. And that really is an important key, especially during these COVID times when we're out here working and trying to be the best people that we can be. But Carl, talk about how you first got started, the mindful movement method. And it's the triple M, but it's a triple wonder of wonders that you've accomplished.
I think that mindful movement method is a culmination of everything that I've learned. Because when I started fitness, I was doing, I call fitness from the outside in, jumping, lifting weights, and all of that work was really outside of your body. And so when I started to look at exercises that happen from the outside of your body, and then I started really getting internal and thinking about how to work out from the inside out, now I'm working my mind, body, and my spirit because I'm here and I'm bringing all that energy out. I can bring energy back in. But before it was just energy out, energy out, energy out. So when I realized throughout the years, I first started 1980, I started teaching aerobics. And from aerobics, it kind of changed into personal training, and I was managing a gym. And I had 120 aerobic instructors, and I was a personal trainer, and that was cool. And that was the 80s. But as fitness started to change in the 90s, it became much more diversified. It wasn't just aerobics, it was hip hop aerobics and Latin aerobics. And so I fell right into the funk hip hop aerobics. That just was for me. And for me, that's what really accelerated my life beyond my wildest imagination.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I understand because I remember, years ago, because I've kind of been a person who enjoyed exercise, but not necessarily feel the burn.
Right.
And that's how you've evolved too, because if you've moved from jumping all around and lifting weights and everything else to really taking the mind along with you, not just your body.
And it's all really about the occurrence of breath. When you really break down what breath is, in our life, we're always breathing out, but we don't really take the time to breathe in. So it's just like from working from the outside, and then you're empty in here. When you start breathing in, that's where the magic is, because now you're bringing things in. So now I'm inside, and I can then work my mind, my body, and my spirit as I release that breath. And then I can do anything. I can do weight work, I can do Pilates, I can do yoga. But once I get in entrainment and I'm in sync with my breath, it changes the way the exercise functions for your body.
Yeah. Let's go back and talk about the true beginning, because it really began in San Francisco. And yes, like you said, you kind of went from one thing to another and started out at the YMCA. Can we do the song? You started out with the YMCA, and then the next thing you know, you're setting up gyms for Gold's Gym. I mean, that's quite a transition from there to there, and then it was on into so much other.
It happened so quickly. I was working for the gas and electric company as a file clerk, and I absolutely hated it. It just was not for me. I liked the job because I liked everyone and everyone liked me. And I did what I always do, went around and just talked to people and had coffee and sat at people's desks. But I wasn't doing a whole lot of filing. I just wasn't.
They were paying you to be a friend.
Exactly. So I started taking aerobic classes, and I loved the aerobic classes. And there was a YMCA right around the corner from my work. So I went there and I talked to a woman, and I said, I wanted to learn how to teach aerobics. They didn't have any men who wanted to do it. And so she said, come on in and you just go ahead and you start teaching a class. And I was like, really? So what they had me do was I started the class, I put the music on, the people walked around the room, And then the music got faster, and then eventually they ran around the room, and then they came back, and then I stretched them out. And that was, for me, my aerobics class. So that was the beginning, the YMCA, because there's, they wanted to keep it basic and simple. Mm-hmm. And then I started going out to studios and watching how other people did aerobics. And then I thought, oh no, I really want to do this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 thing. And so I just went out and studied other instructors, and miraculously, I got into the best club in San Francisco at the time. And I was low man on the totem pole, but still, when they brought me in, they were like, "Oh, we're not sure." I was the only person of color, and I was the youngest also at the time. I was 20 years old. So they brought me in, and they put me at 6:45 in the morning, and I changed that 2 people to 3 people to 4 people to 5 people to 10 people until they couldn't deny that they had to give me a later class.
Yeah.
And so that was because there was no real training back then. And there was a little training here, a little training there, but there was no over-the-board certification or anything like that. Mm-hmm. And so I got in aerobics at a good time because there weren't a lot of rules, and we were making up the rules as we went, which worked perfect for me. I like to make my own rules anyway. But luckily for me, that worked. And then I went to Gold's Gym. I remember I went to Gold's Gym. They had never had a multi-fitness club. They always had musclehead gyms. And in 1984, Gold's Gym decided that they wanted to incorporate fitness so that they could get women into the gym. So they wanted to add aerobics. And I remember the guys, they were all big muscle guys. And I went in at the time, I was just this little skinny thing. And they said to me, "If this doesn't work out, you see that room in there? We're going to bury you in there." And I thought, okay. I took that to heart and did well. But they had 1 gym, then 2, then 3. And then by 1986 or 7, I had 4 gyms and 120 instructors I was, supervising. I had never expected it. I didn't even know what I was doing, but somehow it worked.
Yeah. But when you're on the right path, the doors continue to open. Don't you think?
I think that was a combination of me being willing to go down the path and the path being presented to me.
Yes. Yeah.
Because that was scary. Back then we didn't know, was that a fad? Was it going to last? In the 80s, they thought that maybe by the 90s, aerobics would be a thing of the past. But it actually grew into an industry.
Yes.
So, yeah.
You were ahead of your time.
I was right on time.
Oh, all right. I like that. Once again, we're talking with Carl Powell. He has a wonderful movement called the Mindful Movement Method, and it really incorporates everything. We're just looking at his life right now. Now, you went into personal training, and that was part of it too. And it was so important for you to be able to give people something more than just a move. You wanted to help them be a better person from head to toe and within too.
Life has always offered me these amazing challenges, but I have to say that I just said yes, even though they may have been above what I thought I could do. So the way that I got into personal training was, remember back in the end of the 80s, Oprah Winfrey lost all of the weight, and she did a thing called OptiFast. There was a woman in my aerobics class. Her name was Ann. She said to me, "Oh, we need what do they call it?" I was there to work with the people on their fitness in the OptiFast program. Exercise physiologist, she said to me. Well, at the time, I didn't know. I was 22 years old, 23. I didn't even know what that meant. So I said, "Oh, yeah, I can do that." So I went in, they interviewed me, they hired me. About 6 weeks into it, they called me and they said, "Could we have your college papers, your certifications?" And I was like, well, I gave them my aerobic certifications, and they came back to me. They said, "Aren't you?" And, they went back and forth. But by the time the 6 weeks, I learned how to. These people were severely overweight, lost a lot of weight. And I had taken them and learned how to do personal training on the spot with them because they had a whole different temperament about personal training. These were people who may never moved in their life. So I was really giving them the essence of just breathe, just move, just lift your arm. But it turned into my second part of my fitness career, because then I learned how much I like helping people in a one-on-one situation. So, yeah. But working for the OptiFast, it was crazy because I was working for St. Mary's Hospital and doing a job that, I should have had a degree to do. But the only reason they didn't fire me is because I was already 6 weeks in and the people were making progress. And so that's why I say right place, right time, because that shouldn't have happened.
But it did. And it led you on to so much more. We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, more with Carl Powell. I want to talk about getting out of the 80s and into the 90s and on with your travel.
Yeah.
All right. Carl, people, you may have started in San Francisco, but you traveled the world and made an impact all over the world. Talk about how that opportunity also presented itself.
It was another one of those, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm just going to go by the seat of my pants and do it. I was on a television show and I was the background person. And someone called me from Japan and they said, we have a group of instructors and we want you to teach them how to teach. And I had never even considered going to Japan in my life. It wasn't completely out of my dreamscape. I said yes, and I went, and they loved it. And the next thing I know, the next person called and said, hey, I got this referral from you in Italy. And then I'd go to Italy and I would teach in Italy and I'd meet somebody in Italy and they say, oh, I have a convention going in Spain. And so then I would go to Spain. So from 1990 until 2000, I literally basically lived on the road. I started just traveling back and forth to the countries. And then I just decided it was just too much work to fly to Germany one week, fly back to San Diego, next week, fly back to Switzerland. It was wearing me out, going back and forth. Yeah. And so then I got an offer to live in Germany. And then I didn't really realize this, but Germany is really the center of the earth, because I could go anywhere from there, because I could go backwards. I could fly backwards.
I see what you're saying, yeah.
Yeah. And so all of a sudden, that was the place to be for me. They really liked me there. I was training instructors and doing conventions. And then I got an offer to do QVC. And a woman came up in my class and she said, my husband and I were putting together the show for QVC. Would you be interested? And of course, I said yes. And what else do you say, right? And that was a whole nother evolution of, oh, I didn't know that I could do that. The life just presented it to me. And, oh, I didn't know that I could just go on camera and be easy and natural. I always watched people on television, but I always thought that was reserved for them. But the first time I watched myself on camera, I thought, you belong there. It's okay. Like I had to give myself some props right there.
Exactly.
And I think that's when my confidence grew. And when your confidence grows, then you're unstoppable.
And, and you did it at the same time as you were being in demand and things like that. You were also making contacts for the future.
Which you never know that. When you're doing it, you're in it, you don't know that. I had no idea what growth would give me. But the more that I grew, the more that I wanted to grow. And the more that I wanted to grow, the more the universe kept pulling me out. I remember the first time I went to England and they told me, we're going to fly you to Jersey Island, which I didn't even know England had an island. And they flew me there. The television station was waiting for me when I got off the plane. They were filming me and I was in the newspaper, and I had never even imagined that was possible. I was just, the word that they use in England, gunsmacked. I couldn't believe that this was happening to me. But then that built up my confidence to the next level. So as I started to travel, my stages kept getting bigger. They went from 50 people to 100 people to 500 people. In Argentina one year, we had 900 and something people that we were teaching to at one time. And the more I did it, the more my confidence grew, the more that I've dedicated myself to it. So of course, then you get better at it. But it was a wonderful experience. I got to go to South Africa 1 year after apartheid ended and learn so much about what apartheid was and why, why American people haven't shifted their mindset, because it takes a minute. But I also learned the South Africans were moving at a much faster pace at getting to equality in that short period of time than we did in the entire history of our country.
Right.
So that was interesting. I mean, I learned so much. You think when you go to travel, you are going to learn about places, but you learn about yourself. And you learn about, why do I feel this way? In the United States, it's the only place I've ever been where people call it the restroom or the bathroom. Because you're not going in there to rest, and you're not going in there to take a bath. In every other country, people say, can I use your toilet?
Yeah.
And they're just with it. So I learned a lot about what growing up in America had taught me and how it formed me, and how I just broke out of all of those stereotypes because I wanted to. It was so important to me that when I went to another country that I learned a little bit of the language. Excuse me, thank you. So many people travel and never consider, what does it feel like on the other side? When you run up to someone and say, can you speak English? If you say, excuse me, and surely go in another language, the person then they pipe up and they're ready to interact.
Right.
But yeah, so I just learned it's important that wherever you go, it's not about you. You're going into their home, and to treat it that way.
And it's in a sense, it is very much a respect level. I respect you enough to learn about who you are and how to speak to you.
Right.
It's not just going in, hey, I'm an American, here I am, whoopee. It's really a respect level back and forth.
But the traveling changed me, because as I became more empathetic, I realized that what I was doing wasn't going to match where I was going. And that was the most difficult decision I ever made in my career, was to change. Make that big change from teaching from the outside to going inside and starting to teach yoga and Pilates and Tai Chi and Qigong. One, I had to go in and learn it all and go from being the expert to the student. So that's a lot of letting go of things to allow yourself just to become the student. And I said to myself, I've seen a lot of other fitness people who learn something and they go right out and try to teach it to somebody else. But I really wanted to learn it for me first, because I had to internalize it. And that's when my life changed. I started writing, I started meditating, I started thinking about the 21 steps to magnificent living. That came all from, I was writing all of the things I needed to do to keep my life balanced. And it started off with 11 things. And then as I traveled and learned something else, I said, oh, that's an important thing. And I would write it down. And it just kept evolving and evolving. Then I started to do a lecture. And the lecture grew into kind of a pamphlet, and the pamphlet turned into a book. But that was an evolution of 10 years of my life, learning those lessons and then being able to share them with somebody else. Why else learn if you don't get to share it?
Right. And once again, we're talking with Carl Powell, but you eventually wound back up in America. And, part of it was family coming home, but you never let go of the quest to still continue to motivate and move people in the right direction.
When I left the United States, I was ready to do the Josephine Baker. I wasn't coming back. And only for reasons of self-growth, because I wanted to experience more. And when I came on a vacation first to Hawaii, I came here and I couldn't even read the street signs. Huka Pika Muka Muka Baka, Hanapia Lani. And I thought, this is so much better than really going back to the United States, because I still had to be open and learn. So, yeah. So I was so interested in being here because it was a whole new avenue to learn. And then when I moved to Washington, D.C., that was truly for my family.
The cat?
Yeah, the cat fell out of the window. He's sneaky. He sees I'm busy. So that's a perfect time to do something else.
This can be edited out, right?
Oh wait, whatever. This was
Yeah.
good. But what I was saying was that growth thing is what drove me back to Hawaii. Because I went back to Washington, D.C., and it was life as was. So I felt like I had gone backwards in my world. I learned some of my most important, I think my very most important life lesson ever when I was living in the Maryland, D.C. Region, but it wasn't really for me. But I know now, in retrospect, that's how I had to learn it. What I learned in Maryland was community is the most important thing for the human psyche. We need community. And when I went to Maryland, I didn't know anybody really. And my family, I knew them. But when I opened my studio, I started meeting this person and that person. And in the middle of, I think, about the 5th year, I decided, wouldn't it be great if I could make them a community? And I don't know where that thought came from, but actually I stole something. I had a friend named Julie who had a club called Julie's Supper Club, and she only had it because she liked to sing. So she would jump up on the bar and sing, and it was her private party. You know, the party was just there for her. And so I decided, why don't I have a Carl Supper Club? So
Those were fun. They were epic.
Yeah. And
great food.
Yeah, great food. And we went to members' homes, and everyone got to know each other's husbands and families. And to this day, 20 years later, a third of those people still work out with me.
That's fantastic.
It's amazing, but it's when you become family, a community with people, and then this person knows that person. So this person is concerned about that person. It's not all me trying to send my energy out, but the energy is going this way. It builds a net, and that net holds us together forever.
Exactly.
Yeah. So,
well, you know what's the old saying? You're born with family, but you get to choose the family of friends.
Yeah.
And that's what you have done over the years, is really brought people together. And part of it has been, and I have to show the book, please, by doing recipes for magnificent living, food, friendship, and philosophy. And it's really a great way. I guess I told you, I look through it every now and then, and I get some great recipes, but it's also just good thought processes too, because you want to keep thinking positive and moving forward always.
Yeah. Because that's the most important thing for people in life is growth. The second you stop growing, you start wilting.
Mm-hmm.
I have learned so many lessons from my garden about growth, and when a plant wilts and when it needs more water, and when it's the season for it to bloom. It's a lesson of patience, and a lesson of taking care of something outside of yourself.
Yeah.
But the garden, I have to say, in my life, I never really tried to grow even one single plant. Never considered it. And we moved here, and people here in our neighborhood, they really have some impressive flowers in their front yards and backyards. And so I just started going around the neighborhood and saying to Ryan, oh, I'd like to have that plant, and I'd like to have that plant. And then we'd go to Home Depot and we'd pick up a couple. And it just started to turn into a thing, and it became a thing of also us being together and in pandemic. The most important thing that you do, no matter what, is grow. And so it's a metaphor, but the truth was, when we got our hands in the dirt and we started potting things and putting things up and decorating them and putting them there, I think even our love grew along with the whole garden, because it's growth. And while we were doing it, we were like a vine, we just grew together. So Bob has the most amazing garden. That succulent garden is, I will still watch the movie sometimes. Mm-hmm. Beautiful. So, yeah.
Yeah. We're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to have more with Carl Powell. And we're going to talk about, and you just mentioned it, the pandemic, and how how important it was to not just survive, but thrive during those times. Once again, we're back with Carl Powell, 40 years training, motivating, and entertaining people all over the world. And I do mean all over the world. And Carl, we talk about the pandemic. It's still not really over
Well, not
because
at all.
people are still, kind of one foot in, one foot out. I say get your vaccine and don't even question it. But there are those who still are not fully involved in that. But we still needed to grow during that time, didn't we? And thrive. And not everyone did.
I think on many levels, a lot of people did grow, and in ways that they had never expected. The problem with the unemployment and employment situation in our country was people were working 2 jobs, 3 jobs, barely making it, didn't know what it looked like. They didn't even know what it felt like to not be underwater.
Right.
And then when they got that government check that allowed them to live above water, they thought, well, why have I been suffering down here all this time? So some people did take that time to learn another skill, grow, and grow into another job. So I think a lot of people took that time to grow. On the other hand, there were those people who decided to sit back in the corner and wait for it to be over so they could go back to the way things were. And my question to them would be, in any 2-year period, were things the way they were 2 years ago? They're not. Things change, things evolve. And you have to be okay and move fluidly with the evolution of where things are going, not where things have been. Right. So the people who sit around and they're miserable, they're still waiting for the past to come back. Well, let me tell you this, it's not coming back. It's over. All that there is the future. So you get the choice right now to decide, what do I want to do for my future? For me, the pandemic, I feel like I went to college twice because I've learned more in the last 18 months than I learned in college and high school and maybe even traveling. So much for me to learn about how to go online, what camera to use, what microphone to use, how do you advertise to these people, how do you meet people when you can't meet them? It just was a whole lot of relearning and new learning, which kept my mind so active. Right now I'm in the process of writing another book and I'm still working on my garden, but as long as you keep moving forward, you're going to be okay. The only time that you're locked in is when you lock yourself in, because the locked in thing, if you don't love yourself enough to be with yourself, then you really need to look even deeper during this pandemic. Because if you miss the lesson was you have to be happy with yourself. So many people in relationships, they're looking for someone greater than them or someone who has more to offer than they have to offer, but they expect that to be an equal share relationship. So I'm saying in this time, you should have been inside, growing, learning something, losing weight, which I haven't done because I eat Brian's cooking all the time.
And you posted online and I'm coming over to eat.
Yeah, I think I get more likes on anything, all the posts I put up, more likes on the food than anything, which means people like to eat.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Exactly. But the thing that you do is you do more than just eat. You also still exercise. You keep your body moving. And you also show a true appreciation for nature and how much it has really become very much a part of your life.
Yeah. The garden, the first time I got a plum tree and it grew this long spike where the leaves were supposed to come out, but it took a month and they're still in there. So every day I come out and I'm waiting for it to open and it doesn't open. So I decided I'm going to take a razor blade and split it down the middle and open it up myself. And then that leaf died. And I had to sit back and I thought that was my impatience because, that wasn't the way that things were supposed to happen. Mm-hmm. So now when one of my plants starts to bloom, I'm almost saying, slow down, don't bloom too fast because I really want to enjoy every single part of the bloom, right. From when the flower starts to when it grows. So it's taught me a lot of patience, the garden. It's taught me a whole lot about the ability to be fluid and change when things change. I had to learn how to record outside. We have chickens outside and little kids that run up and down the street, but it's a whole lesson. but that lesson kept me in growth. And as long as you stay in growth, you're moving forward. It's the second you stop growing, because when you appreciate your growth, then you can really appreciate your worth, because that's what your worth is. That's why some people don't feel their worth, because they're not growing, and they're sitting there and they're thinking, why me? This is happening to me. But you have to find your own seeds, plant them, and then grow.
You know, I tell people all the time, you mentioned something in just a few minutes ago that really struck home with me about people wanting to get back to the old thing, what they were doing beforehand. And I'm a firm believer that, in fact, I know it's true. We can't even go back and get the last 10 minutes that we just did. We can't go back and get the last second. It's done. It's over. Move forward. And the old saying, you know, why do you have a small rear view mirror and a great big, front windshield? It's because you want to be able to see forward. And that's how important it is. And as you just said, to continue to grow. So, I just wanted to talk a little bit about some of the other contacts that you've made, because you were heard nationally all over the country on the Tom Joyner show and, Steve Harvey show and things like that. That also gave that you were able to make an impact on people even when they weren't sitting in a class with you.
It was beautiful. And I got acquainted with Tom Joyner, and I went on, I believe, 7 years of the cruise every single year. And every year it just bloomed into new things. For the first year I was timid, I didn't know. And then I met Steve Harvey. And then the more you meet people who you think are great, who think you're great, the more your worth kind of goes up a little bit. And as I did it, because I felt better about myself, I performed at a higher level. Of course, anybody would. But meeting Patti LaBelle and Shaka Khan, and having Susan Taylor from Essence in my class, but not only in my class, but to walk up to me afterwards and say, "You made me feel great." It was the opportunity to have an all-Black class, because all the places that I ever traveled all over the world, I might have had a sprinkle of color, but there weren't a whole lot of Black people in the classes. And when I got on the cruise the first time and I did a hip hop class, I realized I could even use different language because I could just be at home. It was one of the most beautiful experiences, just to be and work with those people and to feel the appreciation and the love. And then to also find that self-love in there, where we all have that voice that plays in the back of your head that says, "I'm not really good enough. I need to do better." And it just quieted that voice down, not completely, but just enough for me to get better. So,
yeah. And you made videos too.
Oh, Lord. I made my first video in 1984. It was called Technical Knockout. And it was about how to technically teach aerobics. Because before there was no technique. People just made stuff up. So I just kind of created a system that I used to teach my instructors. And then I translated that into a video. And then that propelled me to fly all over the world just with the video. That first video, because there was no YouTube. There was no other way for these people to learn other than to bring me there, feed me, pay me, and let me teach their instructors. But it was an amazing thing. Being in Japan, I was there for 6 months. I never had so much sushi in my life. I love sushi though, so it was no problem. But just being there and meeting people, and you learn, like I said, you learn so much about yourself. And when you start to get into the giving mode, the receiving mode, it turns up too. It starts to do this. The more that I give, the more that I receive. And then you realize that really is a true lesson. The more that I have gratitude, the more I will have to be grateful for, because gratitude grows like the garden, like your life. It's all about growth.
It certainly is. Yeah. Well, listen, I think that might be where we're going to stop. Okay. Where you said it's all about growth. Is there anything else you feel like you need to add? You said you're working on a new book.
The most exciting thing I'm doing right now is I'm creating a all-Black well, mostly all Black. I don't want to make it too Black, but I want to do it for people of color because sometimes they don't have the same opportunities to store on Amazon. And so I became an Amazon influencer. And through the influencer program, I get to create my own space, my own Amazon space where I can do live classes. I can do a live interview. Like if you had 5 of your favorite Amazon things, I could call you up right here and we could talk about your favorite 5 Amazon things. But I can let people of color get just a little bit of recognition from what they do. I try to find products from small businesses and Black-owned businesses, women-owned businesses, because it's not exclusive, but I just want to make it inclusive. And so I have my friend Trifina, she's going to be doing makeup and fashion tips. And my friend Kathy in Atlanta, she's going to be doing fitness and nutrition tips. My friend Charles in Chicago, he's going to do Pilates and fitness equipment tips. Ryan's going to do package unboxing and opening up and teaching people how to unbox and put their products together.
That's fantastic.
So it's one of those projects that's going to take time, but that's what growth is. Just like you can't just cut the palm leaf open and open it up. You got to wait for the time for it to bloom. And so that's what I'm doing. I'm blooming that, I'm nurturing my book. I'm blooming that. I'm nurturing my relationships with my clients. So I just feel like I'm in a real space where I realize the importance of nurture, because nurture helps you grow and it helps everything grow around you. And when everything around you is growing, you grow with it. So go with the grow. That's my last thing to say.
It's Carl Powell, 40 years training, motivating and entertaining people all over the world. Thank you so much. Good talking.
Okay, you can reach me at carlpowell.com.
I was going to ask, and what's your social media? Because everybody's got their social things that they need to take care of. So
on Amazon, I'm Healing Garden TV. On Instagram, I'm The Healing Garden Studio. And on Facebook, it's the same, The Healing Garden Studio.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
And how about those classes? Are you still teaching them online?
So I'm doing classes online. They're 8 o'clock in the morning for me. So for instance, where you are, it'll be 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And I'm doing those, and I have a community of people that we're building. And again, another thing growing in my house.
Exactly. Well, it's wonderful seeing you. It's been too long.
Yeah, I know.
But I love Zoom. Who knew that even 5 years ago, you said Zoom? No.
Right.
We didn't even know about Zoom.
Yeah.
But it was there waiting for us to create and to be part of, right?
Absolutely. And without it, where would we be?
Exactly.
Yeah. So gratitude to Zoom and Facebook Live and all of those things, because we can be connected without being together. And if we can take the time to connect without being together, we can heal. And that's what the world needs. It's what our hearts need. It's what our bodies need. It's what the whole COVID and Delta thing needs. Love and compassion. If you have enough love and compassion to help yourself and help the people around you, we're going to heal from this.
Very true. Thank you, Carl.
Thank you. All right. See you soon.